for children as young as 8 and 9 years old. That's right. Bashir seems to think young children are ready to make decisions about permanently changing their gender. It's radical, irreversible, and wrong. Call Andy Bashir. Tell him to keep Kentucky's children out of his liberal culture wars.
Explore, compare, and find your car at mancars.com.
Man, what a deal.
Now at 6, we take a look at a Kentucky statute that could allow the very same gun used in last week's mass shooting at Old National Bank to end up back on the streets. Plus, 2 victims are identified in yet another mass shooting in Louisville over the weekend. And Buffalo Trace Distillery announcing the return of their popular tour and tasting events.
I'm Chief Meteorologist T.J. Shuck. Sun is out across the board. A beautiful afternoon. Of course, that helped temperatures to overachieve into the low 60s. Still got that wind out there. It'll back down and a little chilly as we kick off Tuesday, but temperatures are headed the right direction. I'll tell you about that in your 7-day forecast coming up.
You're watching ABC 36 on your side. News at 6.
Well, good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Paxton Boyd. As investigators continue to search for the motive behind last week's mass shooting at Old National Bank in downtown Louisville, many questions still remain, including what will happen to the AR-15 used in that attack. Last week, Mayor Craig Greenberg shedding light on a Kentucky statute that would allow public auction of confiscated firearms, meaning that very same weapon could end up back on the streets. ABC 36's Anna Medina explains in tonight's top story at 6.
In 1998, Kentucky lawmakers established the Law Enforcement Protection Program, which basically means all guns confiscated by a state or local law enforcement agency, including those used in crimes, to be turned over to Kentucky State Police. According to law, KSP holds a public auction of the confiscated firearms. One lawmaker says in order to make things happen, the people have to unite to make their voices heard.
2 or 3 days ago, a 10th grader from Kentucky tweeting that it is easier for me to get a gun than to get an appointment with a therapist.
Last week's mass shooting at Old National Bank in Louisville sparking debate about what will happen with the AR-15 rifle used in the attack. One Kentucky statute allowing the possibility of that very weapon to end up back on the streets.
There's no provision that I can find in the statute that prohibits the state police from reselling a firearm that was used in a serious crime, such as what happened in Louisville the other day, or any other murder that may occur anywhere in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. So sometimes, and what people have said is these firearms have been resold and can wind up right back out on the street.
According to law, KSP holds a public auction of the confiscated firearms. The law in Kentucky also prohibits local agencies from destroying the confiscated weapons. 20% of the proceeds from the sales in the auction will go to Kentucky State Police. The remaining amount then heads to the Kentucky Office of Homeland Security.
We get to make some money, and that money goes to supply vests and armor for our police officers. And that I can understand. But the truth is, each one of these gunshots, on average, costs us literally $500,000.
It does lay out some provisions for certain types of things that may come into the possession of, like silencers and other things that need to be transferred to the Department of Alcohol, Firearms, and Tobacco, the ATF, instead of selling those at public auction.
For the last 3 years, Senator Karen Burke has tried to create change by introducing a bill that would allow the destruction of firearms.
If these are guns that don't have an owner, nobody actually owns these guns. We're not taking somebody's gun away from them.
Representative Chad All says Kentuckians should not be discouraged, but rather fight for what they believe in.
We can do big things, and we should be doing big things as both a state and a country, but that only happens when there's a groundswell of support and pressure from the public. And so as a lawmaker, the people who really want to see the laws change need to hear from those folks all the time.
Now, we also reached out to Kentucky State Police about these auctions. They sent a statement that reads in part, Kentucky State Police is required to comply with state laws as they are passed. Pursuant to KRS 590 and KRS 16220, all firearms and ammunition confiscated by a state or local law enforcement agency are required to be transferred to the Kentucky State Police for disposition through a public auction to federally licensed firearms dealers. For now, Anna Medina, ABC 36 on your side.